Okay, wow, I haven't really had these bright of lights on me ever before when I'm talking, so I can kind of see you guys, but it's a little spotty. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nashville, Tennessee, and welcome to the Second Southeast Ruby. Who is here from out of town? Oh, nice. Who's all local? Okay, good. Wow, that's a pretty nice mix. Who's from outside of Tennessee? Wow, I'm pretty impressed with that. Well, thank you so much for coming to Nashville to hang out with us and talk Ruby today. I do want to thank the organizers, Jason Charnes et al. If we could give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for doing this. The reason the Ruby community continues is because of commitments by people like Jason. Thank you, sir. So, I also just wanted to quickly thank our sponsors. RAMSEY has been a sponsor for Nash RB, and we meet in this space on the first Thursday, which is today of every month. I also wanted to make sure everyone knew that you could easily donate to OSMI by using smile.amazon.com when you do your normal shopping. You can set them like as the default one that you want to donate to. So my name is Erin. I am the organizer for our local Nashville user group, Nash RB. I've been an organizer for about 3 years. This year we took on a few extra people helping co-organize. So we have John Sloan, who's been here helping out with this conference a lot. We have Brian Lawrence and Brooke Wittenberg, who are not here today, but they are graduates of the Nashville Software School program, who has a Ruby backend class on occasion. I am also a product of that Bootcamp. So as an organizer of Nash RB, I get asked a lot, what is the deal with Ruby? And as someone sort of new to Ruby, I'm like, yo, what is the deal with Ruby? I got to tell something to these people now because they're asking me. So I think I figured a little something out, right? And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Turns out when you Google, is Ruby dead? You're probably looking to find out if Ruby Hale is going to return next season on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But underneath that, we find a dichotomy of answers about the Ruby language. And that basically breaks down into two completely different things, right? Ruby is dead, and long live Ruby. So I'm going to put my little Ruby history hat on real quick for you guys. Ruby is 25 years old. That sounds so old in tech, right? Ruby can now rent a car legally from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. The 90s was the internet age of programming languages, right? Like all right around the same time, we got all of our modern languages. JavaScript, Java, Ruby, Python, PHP, all 90s kids. Ruby was originally conceptualized in 1993. Its first public release was in 95. Our first English book on Ruby was in 2001. That was 17 whole years ago, guys. So to talk about Ruby being on the decline, we got to talk about Ruby on the rise. So in 2005 is when Rails version 1.0 came out. In 2005, Ruby was ranked like number 40 on the Tiobe Index. In the same year, we had a lot of other things happen. Django was released for the first time as open source. Cake PHP was developed, and Grails had its initial release. 2005 was exploding with frameworks, and Rails was leading the way, right? Everybody was jumping on the Rails bandwagon. And with that, Ruby started to soar. And that interest brought a lot of new people to Ruby. So the Tiobe Index basically looks at people with popular search engines looking for literally Ruby programming, okay, which maybe is a little bit irrelevant today since we have such better search, because you're probably like Ruby and some other crazy crap that you're looking up, right, when you're trying to find an answer on Stack Overflow. Start entering in Ruby programming more often. We jumped all the way to number 8 in 2006 from 40. We were Programming Language of the Year in 2006. And we stayed number 8 until about 2008. And by then we were version 1.87. We were 15 years old. And then Rails kind of ran into some, we'll say, scalability issues, and all the people were on to the next thing, you know. Ruby's on the decline. We see it across many rankings of the Ruby programming language, that it's consistently falling. Today, we have tons of frameworks that we can choose from to make a web app, right? Rails isn't the only option, and that's been hard for the Ruby community. We've seen a lot of decline off of that just because there's so many other decisions that you can make out there now. And why aren't people choosing Rails anymore? Well, there's kind of two things going on here. We now have way more powerful browsers, right? And people are trying to do a lot more on the client side. And you can still use Rails as an API. Heck, we got that -- API business going on for the CLI, right? But I mean, once people have started making a decision to commit heavy JavaScript on the client side, and then they think, well, the server role's reduced, maybe we don't even need Rails, you know, and plus we're hiring JavaScript engineers, we're just gonna keep with that pattern and let them do that on the back end too. So we're definitely fighting that battle, right? Because Rails is still a solution that's more classic, that's building those HTML pages and delivering them to the client. The other thing we have is Rails is big-time web application, right? And mobile is just getting bigger. And again, that goes back to people are looking at making an API and making separate client-side apps. You can see GitHub does obviously does a lot of surveys with us. You see this blue line here? That's Ruby, just tanking it. This is percentage of monthly active users. And obviously they can only look at open source projects. They can't look at anything that doesn't use anything private. In 2011, we were second on GitHub with 18% of the users. And now we're all the way down to 3.2% of the users. That could be a little swayed because honestly, GitHub is a Ruby product, and in the beginning, it definitely probably was disproportionately Ruby members, you know. And so we can see where that would go down. But also keep in mind, GitHub just, numbers are growing, period. So this is a percentage share. Let's all talk about something uncomfortable. We have had important people in our community leave the community. They've gone off to other languages. Elixir probably is the one that, I don't know how we feel about that, if we're kind of bitter about it or what. I mean, it came out of Ruby community, you know, I feel like we should be proud of that, but then some people are kind of mad that everyone's committed over to that. Even the reason I am organizer of Nash RB is the guy who did it for 9 years, Elixir dev now. But we've had important people. Yehuda Katz went to Rust. We've had people who are organizers. writers of our books go on to Rust and Golang and whatever else, right? And that's fine. But their gems are getting staler by the day. You know, those things aren't being supported anymore. Their pet projects are being pushed back. So, like, that's enough bragging on Ruby for today, for all day. Ruby is a comeback kid. Remember I said that we peaked at 8 in 2008? Well, guess what? We're back. Because in 2016, we hit 8 again. And we've even hit 8 once so far this year. We consistently rank in the top 15. They do this index every month, you know, and it's monthly activity. I mean, you know, active users, so. This time, it's different, though, because it's not just because of the popularity that's driving Ruby to be popular, right? It's bigger than that. It's more consistent than that. We're more mature. We have users that are Ruby loyalists and are not moving on to other things. We have people who are adopting Ruby and staying with Ruby. I definitely like to point out we have a lot of boot camps are pushing Ruby. When I go and search on boot camps and what they're offering, you'll do search, top 10 boot camps. Every single one of them is teaching Ruby on Rails. Every single one. A couple have gone away. They're doing some Node.js stuff, but if you're wanting to get into web development, Ruby is usually the way people are telling you to go. And even Matt has said what his goal for the language is to continue to make it easier for new programmers to pick up. So this is not percentage of monthly active users. This is monthly active users. This is Ruby here. We've consistently been going up, and we're a little bit stable now, right? Looking at it this way, Ruby has more than 3 times the number of users than we had in 2011. So even though we've dropped from 18% to 3% of the share, we've tripled in the number of users. We're still making a lot of things with Ruby, like a lot of big apps. What's the one here at RAMSEY that uses Ruby? Anyone? Anyone? I wanted to put it on here, but I wasn't sure if it was Smart Dollar or, okay. I put the one I work with, as Speechy, in the middle. I mean, but lots of people are still using it. Bloomberg is using it, Heroku, Etsy, Airbnb. I mean, these are not small projects. Everyone gets a little hurt over Twitter moving away from us, but they stayed with us for a long time. I was reading about a thing with languages that is a concept of the law of diminishing returns. So they say, like, with the first generation of programming languages to the second, you see a lot of improvement. But as the generations go on, you know, how much improvement do you get with each new generation? And it's going to be harder for these new generations of languages to pick up traction and to become, for any single one to really break out of the pack and become popular like the ones that we saw from the 90s do. So I don't think Ruby is going away for quite a while. And let's face it, you guys, Ruby's just beautiful, right? It's awesome. It's designed for us to be productive and to do enjoyable programming. We've just got to start, you know, facing the facts of what's going on in the Ruby community. We make amazing things. Because we came up in web development, we've made amazing things. Rails for web development. We have Chef and Capistrano for DevOps. We have Elixir for functional programming. Homebrew for sysadmin. Heroku for deployments. I mean, we've made like a very great environment if you're going to be a web developer. So, what's going to happen with Ruby in the future? That's up to all of us in this room. We are literally the future of Ruby, right? You guys are the ones who are going to get out there and lead. We're the ones who are going to speak at conferences and write books and bring up the next generation. Somebody's got to get out there and start teaching all these bootcamp kids how to write real Ruby whenever they graduate, right? What we have now left in our community is Ruby loyalists. We have a bunch of startups because we're still really great at getting Rails is still really great at getting applications up and out the door. We have a lot of DevOps because of those products I was telling you about. And we have a lot of new programmers because of the popularity in bootcamps. And we're 10 years past the peak of Ruby, and we're seeing it come back strong again. And if you think about what do we want the next 10 years of Ruby to be? Do we want in 10 years to still be really good at getting an application up and out the door for startups? You know, do we want to maybe move in another direction like Python did and kind of got picked up for some data science stuff as well? I mean, we're already moving in the direction of DevOps. We're a scripting language. You know, I think that we're really popular in that community. There's a lot of crossover. So we have to think about what we want for Ruby to be, and we have to be the ones who are going to take it there. We have to write the new gems or maintain the projects. So who is going to step up and be the leaders of the Ruby community? All the hipsters are gone. The people who are on it because it's the popular bandwagon, they're out of here. We don't have to worry about them anymore. We have had a wave of influencers leave. That's fine. We have a stable community, and we need people in this room to step up and be the leaders for Ruby for tomorrow. So let's get together and start thinking about the next era of Ruby. And I have this last slide. Actually, I did all this research, right? And literally, if you Google, is Ruby dead? This is Jason Charnes's website. I thought that was so beautiful. So, thank you all so much.